Let me introduce Mary Caprice. Mary is currently the Director of Philanthropy for Canine Companions for Independence Northwest Region. Canine Companions for Independence is an organization that trains and provides service animals for people with disabilities. Once the dog has completed its training, Canine Companions provides training to its human and monitors the pair to make sure they work well together. I'll hand this meeting over to Mary so that she can tell you all the details.
So hi everybody, and thanks Judy for the introduction. Like Judy said, my name is Mary Caplice, and my title is Director Philanthropy for Canine Companions Northwest Region. Here in Alameda, so also in the Bay Area, and I'm very happy to be here today. So I'll just go through a quick agenda. Judy, thank you for the welcome. And I'm going to go through a Canine Companions overview, including our program, how it impacts people with disabilities, and also some client stories. Because I can talk all day about Canine Companions, but there's nothing like hearing it directly from somebody who has received one of our service dogs. We'll also review how you can help our mission, and then we will end with a Q&A. Canine Companions is a national nonprofit that actually breeds, trains, and provides very high quality service dogs to people with disabilities. And their disabilities can be both visible disabilities, such as wheelchair users, or they can be invisible disabilities, such as people who are deaf or hard of hearing, or people who have PTSD. And we match these expertly trained service dogs with people with disabilities completely free of charge. So we don't charge anything for these dogs, and it costs the organization approximately $50,000 to provide these dogs to people. It includes everything involved with our program, and also a 2-week training class, which we'll talk about. And also, once somebody goes home with one of their dogs, we provide ongoing support throughout that dog's working life. So all that is provided at no charge. So once we match somebody with a service dog, it goes up and down a little bit every year, but the past few years it's been a 99% success rate. In other words, when we match someone with a dog, that team does stay together. So there's a lot involved in this, and when you meet one of our clients, often you'll hear from them, I don't know how Canine Companions did it, but they matched me with the most perfect dog just for me, and I don't know how they did it. But there's actually a lot of work that goes on behind that to make the perfect matches, or they see it as perfect, but pretty perfect in our eyes. So the same training staff that trains the dogs also take people through our very intensive application process, where somebody starts off by doing an online application, followed by a phone interview. Medical records are obtained. We find out about somebody's lifestyle. Are they really highly active, or would they like a dog that is fine being pretty much low energy and home all day, but also doing their commands as needed. And so a lot of time and energy goes into the trainers knowing the dogs themselves and the people who are applying for them. So when somebody is invited, we'll get into a little bit more detail about this later, but when somebody is invited to our 2-week team training class, the trainers have 2 or 3 dogs in mind for that person when they arrive. So 2 days into the 2 weeks of training, they rotate through those 2 or 3 different dogs, and the trainers are making last minute notes and making last minute decisions on that. And then on that Wednesday of their 2-week training class, they are matched with their dog, and they finish out the 2 weeks of that training. So that's how we make the perfect matches. But it is a 98, 99% rate. If something doesn't work out, then we definitely will swap out that dog for one that's a better fit. So just a few facts and figures about Canine Companions. Like I said, we are a nationwide organization. We have 6 campuses around the country, with our headquarters in Santa Rosa, California, Sonoma County. We were founded in 1975. And since 1975, we have placed approximately 7,500 dogs with people with disabilities. We have a skeleton crew of about 300 employees across the country, with about 4,700 volunteers. So we are highly reliant on our volunteers. We could not do what we do without our passionate, very valuable volunteers. And those volunteers are within the 100,000 or so supporters, including donors, that support our mission. And like I said, we have our own breeding program. We breed labs, golden retrievers, and the cross between the two. And in 2022, 970 puppies were born. And our breeding program is based out of our headquarters in Santa Rosa. And in addition to our 6 campuses, we have many volunteer chapters around the whole country. So what's our approach to providing these dogs to people? So little stats behind that. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 4 Americans with disability, 1 in 4 people in the US have a disability. And out of those, half of those disabilities are considered severe disabilities. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 4.7 million veterans have a service-connected disability, and about 8% of the children under the age of 15 in the US have a disability. And we of all the disabilities that we serve, there are about 65 different ones, but you'll see a pie chart here with the most common being cerebral palsy, neuromuscular issues, deaf or hard of hearing, autism, and then the other is kind of lumped into 14% that fills out those 65 different disabilities. So the different types of people we serve include adults, children, and veterans with disabilities. So those dogs are matched one-on-one with those people with disabilities. And also we provide facility dogs to professionals who work in settings that tend to be high stress for the clientele there, including hospitals, schools, courtroom settings. And for example, as far as courtroom settings, a lot of DA's offices are matched with our facility dogs. And I'll show a video about one of our stories, a local story about a facility dog with the Contra Costa DA's office. But for example, our facility dogs work with the clientele in these settings. And you can see in the picture, the girl with a dog on her lap, that is actually a lap command. The dog is told lap, and the dog jumps, puts their 2 front paws up on your lap like that. And it's comforting, especially to children who can spend months in the hospital. Physical therapists are matched with our dogs. And the dogs really use their skills to encourage people to do the physical therapy much better than a human can. They're much more convincing for some people. But back to the courtroom dogs, many of our facility dogs are placed with investigators with DA's offices, where the dogs not only, again, are nice dogs for comfort, but they do change the outcome of cases. So the dogs spend time with victims of crime who are being questioned about what happened to them, and also the dogs stay with them in the witness stand in the courtroom. But back over to the left, with children, one of the types of disabilities that will qualify children under the age of 18 for one of our dogs is to have physical disabilities, which include a lot of wheelchair users, and also children who might have limited mobility in their arms and their hands. So they are always dropping things. So these dogs, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a big deal to have help when you're dropping things all the time and you'd rather not be reliant on other people to pick those things up for you. You know, we have people who were adults and children who receive our dogs, and it's such a relief to not have to ask somebody all the time when I drop something to pick it up, especially when it's safety related, like out in public and you drop your cell phone or your car keys. So that's a very useful task that those dogs do. Those dogs will also open and close doors, open and close drawers. And we'll see that in one of the videos I'll be showing you. And another disability that qualifies a child for one of our dogs is autism. So children with autism use two of the commands that we have. One is a cover command that provides that deep calming pressure. The dog basically just lies across the child. It's also used for adults, as far as adults, and it just really stops behaviors. The behaviors sometimes can and often last for hours, and it in a lot of cases it just stops it right there. So yeah, I could spend a lot of time on children with autism, but they just do amazing things for them. And then over to adults. So adults, we provide different types of service dogs for them. Similar to children with physical disabilities, we provide wheelchair users, service dogs that help with the same thing, open and closing drawers, open and closing doors, picking up dropped items. And the dogs really help them to feel more comfortable going out in public. Well, a lot of our other clients, dogs make the difference between not going out in public and feeling comfortable going out in public. But they also will attach for manual wheelchair users. There's an attachment on their vest that helps them propel a manual wheelchair along a sidewalk or a floor. And it really helps them conserve energy and save wear and tear on their limbs that are required to propel a manual wheelchair. And as far as adults go, we also provide hearing dogs. So that's a hearing dog that you see in the adults section here, where hearing dogs alert their person to sounds in their environment that they're trained on, and also to sounds that they're not trained on. So the dog hears the dog is trained on sounds in their environment, like their person's cell phone, which might have a ring different than the other family members, the front door, the microwave, the phone, all kinds of sounds in their environment. But these dogs are chosen kind of for their independence, where if they see a fire truck coming down the street making a lot of noise, they'll decide, I think I should notify my person about that too. So they're chosen for their ability to decide on their own what they need to nudge their person for. So yeah, they really help bring independence to people who are deaf. Oh, and another thing to mention in that picture, the rest of the command is, so the dog nudges their person on the side of the leg, and the rest of the command is what? And the dog will take their person to the thing that's making noise. So it's an optional part of that command, but very useful. And then over to veterans. So we have always served veterans the same as other adults, as far as providing service dogs for people who have physical disabilities, and also veterans who have a hearing loss or are deaf. But it was about 6 years ago that we started working through the VA to provide veterans with PTSD service dogs. And those dogs, we started working through the VA, but saw ourselves that they really do make a difference in their lives. So it's been about 4 years since we've been providing service dogs for veterans with PTSD directly to them. So they apply through a program rather than the way they started, which was through the VA. But the some of the ways that these dogs help is they create space in a crowded environment. They have commands where they create space in front of their person, behind their person, and that's one of the ways that these dogs really help these veterans go out in public, where a lot of them didn't before they got their dog. And it's one of the ways that the dog makes them feel comfortable going out in public, where they, especially in a crowd. They also do nightmare interruptions. So if they detect by thrashing around that their veteran is having a nightmare, they'll pull the covers off. They're trained to pull the covers off, or they might, it depends, they can be trained in different ways. They could jump up on the bed and really wake them up, but it takes the veteran out of that state and back to the present, which is really helpful because it just shortens those night terrors. And they can also, of course, if a veteran has both PTSD and physical disabilities, then the dog can help with that also. So those are all the basic types of dogs that we provide. And this is a kind of a timeline of our overall program. So I mentioned we do have our own breeding program, and puppies are born in the homes of volunteer breeder caretakers. You need to live within 100 miles or so of our campus in Santa Rosa, and the puppies are born in those homes. About 85% of them are born in the homes of those volunteers. But we do have a center up in Santa Rosa for if they're going on vacation or if there's a high-risk pregnancy. So we do have a center up in Santa Rosa where puppies can be born also. But when the puppies are approximately 8 weeks old, the volunteer breeder caretakers drive the whole litter up to Santa Rosa, our headquarters, where the puppies get their first shots, their first bath, their first checkup. And after that, they go all around the country to all 6 of our regions, where the puppy raisers get them at approximately 8 weeks old. So the puppy raisers have them for about 18 months, and their responsibility is to teach them about 25 basic commands, and almost just as importantly, to socialize them to all different environments that a service dog will need to be comfortable with, like go out on Halloween and make sure your puppy sees a scarecrow or people in costumes, and make sure they're used to elevators and airplanes. You cannot expose them to enough different things so that they'll make it as a service dog. So we have about 1,300 volunteer puppy raisers across the country right now, including I think there's about 14 prison puppy raising programs. So the puppies are raised by prisoners. The most recent prison that we added was San Quentin. And they are, out of all the puppies that are trained and go off to professional training, only about between 50 and 55% make it as service dogs because our quality standards are so high. But the prison puppy raising program, that the dogs that come out of that program have a consistently higher graduation rate than the general population of volunteer puppy raisers. It's probably because it's a very regimented environment. The prisoners are spending 24/7 with the puppies, and they just get to focus on them, 24/7. So, so we have prison puppy raising programs, and also about 22 college puppy raising programs. So that's puppy raising. And then as far as professional training goes, when the puppy is about 18 months old, the puppy raisers turn them into one of our 6 campuses around the country. And that's where the professional trainers take over. It's kind of like they're going off to college. So they live on campus between 6 to 9 months, and the professional trainers work with them. The training is divided up into 2 semesters. With the first semester, they're evaluated for their temperament. They have medical exams for their eyes, ears, hearts, elbows, and they could be released for even like a minor um, elbow dysplasia or something like that. But when the second semester comes along, that's when the trainers kind of decide on a career path for the dogs between the 5 different types that we provide. So the dogs are in training for 6 to 9 months, depending on which career path is chosen for them. The dogs that take the longest to train are hearing dogs and PTSD dogs. So they stay the longest. So, like I mentioned earlier, at the same time that the dogs are being trained by the trainers, it's the same staff who are guiding people or applicants or human applicants through the application process. So they are getting to know both the dog and the people who are applying for a dog. So our wait list is about 1 to 2 years long, which we're trying to change. But right now it is about 1 to 2 years long once somebody goes through that application process and they're invited onto the wait list. So once somebody gets kind of towards the top of the wait list, the trainers will invite someone off of the wait list and into a 2-week team training class where the trainers have chosen 2 or 3 dogs for each person. So they're kind of a custom fit a dog with a person. So we always have more dogs rotating through a team training class than there are students. And we have up to 10 students in a class. So yeah, it's 2 weeks on site. They work with multiple dogs, and the first 2 days, like I mentioned, they rotate through dogs. Wednesday, they're matched with somebody, and then the whole 2 weeks of training includes both practical training, where the recipients of the dogs are learning the skills that the dogs already know, and they also have classroom work where they're handed a workbook when they first arrive, and they're given quizzes and have a little pressure put on them to make sure they learn everything that they need to know to be successful with their dog once they leave. So at the end of the 2 weeks, we have a graduation ceremony. They are all open to the public. You are all welcome to the graduation schedule for the Northwest is on our website. You're all welcome to attend any graduation. And then once somebody goes home with their dog, we have staff who follow up and make sure, there's so much effort put into making a quality match between dog and human that we want to ensure that quality is maintained over the dog's working life. So we have staff that recertifies them every a couple years or so and keeps in touch with them, problem solves with them, so that we make sure we're maintaining those quality standards. So what's our impact? So in addition to these dogs who are obviously helping people to be more independent, whether they're matched with somebody who one-on-one with somebody with a disability or as a facility dog. One thing that we also found, and I won't read off this slide, but we did a survey that showed us that our dogs have also a huge social impact on our clients. So they feel more comfortable going out in public. They feel more independent. So, and once they're out in public, I know, for example, we have people who have visible disabilities, such as wheelchair users. People don't know how to approach them, and they don't talk to them. And the person who's a wheelchair user might be a very sociable person who wants to talk to people. And we have found that having a dog improves that situation. So the etiquette is with people with service dogs, you should always ask, can I say hello to your dog? But a lot of times they will say yes, unless they're in the middle of helping them with something. And a lot of our clients actually really like that part of it, because before they had a dog, people were afraid to talk to them. And after they have a dog, people are more comfortable talking to them. So that's one really nice added benefit. So another thing I'd like to mention is our advocacy program, and we'll cover this. I'll share a link when we go through the how can you help section, but we have done, especially in the past 5 years or so, I'd say we really have gotten involved in legislation. So we have a group that you can join, our advocates group, and they do all kinds of things like you can do you can sign up for petitions that are emailed out to the group. You can email your legislator on specific topics. There's a lot of different ways, and just help with outreach in general. There are really a lot of ways you can help. And we have 12,000 members signed up for this program. So a couple examples, and I'm going to share these slides with Judy, where you can click on these links and find more details about the Federal Pause Act that helps veterans. I believe that's the Pause Act added insurance through the VA for our clients who have PTSD dogs. So the VA always covered costs associated with having a service dog for people with physical disabilities, including service dogs, guide dogs, and hearing dogs. But now they can also be covered if they and eligible if they have a service dog that helps them with PTSD.
Mary,
The AC, yes,
I was wondering if this is a good time to answer some questions because I do
sure,
have like 3 or 4 of them.
sure.
They're in your chat, or I can read them to you.
Okay.
What would you prefer?
Oh, if you can read them to me, then I
Okay.
can just keep my screen the way it is. Thank you.
Do other training centers, you said you had some around the country, raise and place puppies?
Yes. So the professional training. I'll back up a little bit. Our breeding program is based out of our headquarters in Santa Rosa, and that's where breeder caretakers turn in the 8-week-old puppies, and then the puppies go out to all 6 regions, and the puppy raisers in those regions raise the puppies, and when they're about 18 months old, they turn into the campus, their own regional campus, where professional training takes place in all 6 of our regions. And all 6 of our campuses have graduations. Yeah, so all that kind of happens in parallel.
Another question. How long after a person is approved to have a dog is it before they're actually paired with one?
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't mention that. So once someone is invited onto our waiting list, the wait is about 1 or 2 years. We do have an initiative, which I won't go into too much detail today, but we have an initiative where we want to double the amount of puppies that are born, because we always have about 400 people on our wait list at any one time. So we want to double the amount of puppies that are born so that we can provide more service dogs and kind of decrease that wait list to the point where if somebody is admitted onto the wait list after they've gone through that application, they're going to pretty much get a service dog very soon after that, rather than waiting.
You talked about them calming autistic children in some cases, and do the children themselves recognize that they're ready to start, going into a temper tantrum or whatever, and call the dog? Or does the dog recognize that's going to happen and move in, or what happens?
One thing that I'm sorry I didn't mention, any child under the age of 18 who qualifies for one of our dogs also requires an adult, which is almost always a parent, but doesn't have to be. An adult is always responsible for the dog itself. The dog is matched with the child, but then an adult is always responsible for the dog itself. And with autism, because some children with autism it can actually be dangerous, so the parent is the one who watches out for the well-being of the dog and monitors when the commands need to be used to stop the behaviors.
This a very specific question, but it leads off of what you were saying. The person says that in a school that they were working in, they had an autistic young man. It's high school, so he was a big guy, about 6 feet, who was extremely violent, and had to have a security guard with him at all times. I don't think he ever went into a classroom with anybody. Most of the time he was kept in a separate room where he threw things or banged on the walls. Is that too extreme for a dog to work with? And
yeah, you need to be, I'm just a fundraiser here, so I don't know the answer for, I mean, this is something that is included in that ongoing support throughout the dog's working life, where our staff of trainers would guide them through a situation like that. And the safety and well-being of the dog is always top priority. So they would never want to put that dog in a dangerous situation. But I'm guessing that the dog might be able to help somebody like that. I know there's not the same exact situation, but I know a case where a child with autism when she's at home, she does have pretty can have not violent so much, but dangerous, maybe throwing objects around, where the mother doesn't let her service dog help her until he's out of danger.
Okay.
But then she does, and over time, she's had the dog for about a year. Over time, the dogs really do make a difference, and not completely eliminate those behaviors, but make a huge improvement over the quantity of those behaviors.
Great, that's all I have for right now. So
okay, excellent, great questions. Thanks, Judy, for letting me know.
Oh, you're welcome.
Excellent. The ACA ruling, I believe that the Air Carrier Airline Act, but Canine Companions was instrumental in changing the rules with the Department of Transportation, as far as I'm sure everybody heard about emotional support peacocks and whatnot causing trouble on planes. Well, that's not allowed anymore. And Canine Companions was a part of making that happen. California Bill AB 468 was a bill that was signed by Gavin Newsom, I think about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that makes it a civil penalty to sell fake service dog vests online, because people they feel like it's a victimless crime to say, I would love to take my pet dog who's not trained as a service dog to restaurants and Target and wherever. And so just go on Google and buy a service dog vest and a phony certification. So this bill makes it that illegal in California. So if you would like to sign up as an advocate, they have ongoing webinars and education series to support you. And Canine Companions is also involved in industry leadership roles. I mentioned the Air Carrier Access Act Advisory Committee. We're a part of that. And also we're a founding member of Assistance Dogs International, which kind of sets the standard for service dogs and certifies service dog organizations in the US and internationally. We also have really interesting groundbreaking research. I kind of mentioned that the VA study, the Congress started a study or funded a study to study the efficacy of providing service dogs to veterans with PTSD about 6 years ago. And they started by sending the dog, they would find the veterans themselves and send them to us. But now we started our own program. But in the meanwhile, the study has been completed, and it definitely showed that service dogs do help veterans with PTSD. There's also, I don't think it's complete yet, but Purdue University, because right now we see kind of anecdotal evidence. It's obvious that our dogs help children with autism, but there was never like a scientific study around it. So that this is being conducted right now. Next is Duke University Duke University has a puppy kindergarten, and they're studying a couple different things. One of them is when breeder caretakers turn in their litter of puppies. There can be 8 or 10 puppies running around for that whole 8 weeks, and then within a couple nights they're home alone. Not alone, but they're the only dog in a home. So this is going to study a couple different things. So at Duke, they have this puppy kindergarten where students are raising the puppies. They are volunteer puppy raisers. The dogs stay with them in their dorms at night, but during the day, they go to puppy kindergarten where they run around with other puppies all day. And they also have, I think it's definitely open to all the students to go visit the puppies. So there's a lot of stimulation in that environment. And they are studying whether that helps puppies to have a higher graduation rate. So yeah, you can see the links to all these in the PDF that I'm going to send out to Judy. We do a lot of studies around canine cognition. So, which is one example. There are so many of them. Canine Companions has been part of studies where, for example, they'll have a puppy on one side of the room and a trainer on the other side of the room, and there's a treat under one of the cups. When they can't see, it's hidden to them as far as what treat, which cup has a treat. So the puppy, and they do this test over and over again. The puppy can either decide on their own which cup they think the treat is under, or they can take direction from the human. And it's hard to, but they do a big pointing gesture towards the cup that has the treat in it. And they study which puppies take the cue from the human rather than deciding on their own. And that human cue, it's like natural for some puppies, even at 8 weeks old, to see somebody pointing, a human pointing and saying, this is where the treat is. So where there are traits like that, another thing that they study is which traits like that help them to become service dogs later, and also which of all the traits that make a service dog successful is which of those traits are heritable, in other words, inheritable from their parents. So that will inform decisions around our breeding program, like the traits that, because one thing I didn't mention, or breeding program, breeders are chosen out of the puppies that turn in to professional training. And they kind of take the cream of the crop, and rather than have them become service dogs, they're chosen as breeders because we want the cream of the crop to make more puppies like them. So so we're hoping that these canine cognition studies will help us decide which traits we should be looking for in breeders in order to raise our graduation rate. So hope you all enjoy looking at these links and learning a little bit more.
I have one right here. I'm sorry. What type of education do the trainers have? Are they typically college graduates?
They are college graduates. So some majors in college are closely associated with that. So that's, but there's no specific requirement as far as what to major in college. I'm sorry, can you remind me what your question was, Ted?
Sure. I had 4 questions. Number 1 was, what is the average period of the service?
Yes, so it's about 8 to 10 years, and that's part of that ongoing support throughout the dog's life. Our staff are in touch with our clients throughout the dog's working life, and one of the difficult decisions when the dog starts to get a little bit older, may not be able to do their commands like they used to, and they're ready for retirement. It's a decision that's really difficult on them because they're so attached to their dogs, and it's a slow process. That's why our staff is in touch with them. It might take a year or two for one of our clients to apply for a successor dog, and by then, most of the the service dogs who retire, they're ready for retirement, and almost all of them are just adopted by the family as a pet dog, and they kind of, some of them still like to do their commands at home along with the new dog, but yeah, it is a difficult transition to go for, to decide it's time to retire your dog and get a new one. But it's roughly, like typical dogs live 12, maybe sometimes 14 years old.
Should I ask away?
Sure.
Okay. So what are the things are they not expected to be able to perform service for? Like what are the what boundaries?
Right. Yeah, so Canine Companions has its roots in physical tasks, helping people with physical tasks, opening closing doors, opening closing drawers, nudging somebody on the side of the leg with when they hear a sound. And now with a PTSD program, it's detecting, commands around creating space, opening lights on in a room ahead of their person. So our roots are in physical tasks. One thing we don't do, and this is part of the application process, we don't do scent detection. When our dogs are released, one of the first thing we'll do is look for another service dog program that the dog might be better suited to. And there's an organization in the East Bay and Concord, Early Alert Canines, where our dogs are released from our program for one reason or another, and Early Alert Canines teaches them scent detection, and then they're placed with a person with diabetes. So that's one example. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. And you did mention like 5 different types of dogs, service dogs. So what are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the eyes of the law, the ADA law, all these dogs are service dogs, but except the facility dogs. But in Canine Companions categories, it's service dogs for people with physical disabilities, wheelchair users, and people who need help with physical tasks. And if a child under the age of 18 has the same type of disability, but somebody over the age of 18 needs to be responsible for the dog itself, we refer to those teams as skilled companions. So that's the second type. The third type are hearing dogs that we talked about. The fourth are the service dogs for veterans with PTSD, which we talked about. And then the fifth type are the facility dogs.
Mm-hmm. And does the sex of the dog play any kind of role?
No. Nope. Only when it comes to becoming breeders.
Wow. Those are all the questions I had. Thank you.
That brought up a question for me. Do you fix your dogs or do you keep them intact?
When the dogs go to professional training, so the females can be mixed. In other words, a little bit of golden retriever, a little bit of lab. But the males, just as far as keeping track in the breeding program, the males need to be either full golden or full lab. So when puppies are being raised with their puppy raisers, the males who are any type of mix get neutered at about 1 year old. And the females won't get neutered until they go into professional training, and it's been decided whether they're going to go into the breeding program or not. So once the puppies turn in for professional training, the breeders are chosen 8 weeks into that. So once it's decided they are the cream of the crop, we're going to have them become a breeder. They are placed with a volunteer breeder caretaker, and their training doesn't continue. And then the rest of the girls will be spayed.
So, what are different characteristics of golden retriever versus the labs?
Yeah, so labs really like to work. They're very food motivated, and golden retrievers love people. Our breeding program kind of aims for probably full golden retrievers do make it as service dogs, but for the most part, we like the great combination is mostly lab with a little golden retriever mixed in, because not all golden retrievers tend to not be as easy to train as labs. We have some puppy raisers who love golden retrievers, and some of them, after they've trained labs, like, I never want to train another golden retriever again.
Does anybody else have any questions you'd like to ask?
Yes. I don't know why my questions aren't coming through. I have more than one. The first one, you mentioned the problem with peacocks, and you said something has no longer a problem, but what is no longer a problem?
So emotional support animals are no longer allowed in the cabin of airplanes.
Okay, so those peacocks were emotional support, not service animals?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And we've applied for a dog with your association, although where we are in the waiting list, I don't know, which is very frustrating. But one thing I've wondered, we have a dog and 3 cats at home. And I'm concerned about the dog that we have, who is not necessarily the nicest to other dogs. I assume that your dogs are trained to get along with other dogs and cats, but what about the animals that are already in the client's home?
Well, that's definitely taken into consideration. And that's like I said, when you apply for a dog, you would go through a very thorough application process. And I'm not sure exactly. I can find out. Yeah, it's a decision. It's a joint decision, I would imagine, as to whether having any other dog in your home makes sense. I don't know, but yeah, they would help you decide whether whether it makes sense to have another dog in your house. And I don't want to answer for them because I'm just a fundraiser here. But where do you live, Sue?
Oakland.
Okay. So I know one of the things that, and I'm not sure what's going, I can ask our trainers what's happening with your application, but I know part of the whole process is making sure we're matching people's disabilities with the skills that the dogs learn. For example, the example I used before, if you need a dog for scent detection, for diabetes, Canine Companions isn't going to be a good fit for you. And that's a really simple example, but there could be more to it.
This is for my grandson, and he has autism and ADHD.
Okay.
And he needs the dog. There's no question.
Okay.
The question is what we'll do about the current dog.
Right.
If they'll give us some guidance as to what to do about that.
Yeah, so Judy has my email address. Feel free to send me an email, and I will try to look into it for you.
Thank you for all of your explanation. This is really great.
You're welcome.
Do you raise any smaller dogs or just the standard size?
So Canine Companions, and I don't run the breeding program, but so our labs and golden crosses tend to be on the smaller side, and that's one of the considerations that's taken when they're matching, when the trainers are matching a dog with a person. So I heard recently that we're trying to add some larger dogs to our breeding program because people, for example, people who are wheelchair users, they like to have a dog who's kind of tall up to the level of their wheelchair.
Sure.
And other people like to have smaller dogs in the 40-pound range or so that can fit under an airline seat pretty easily. So it depends. So we like to have kind of a variety of sizes as far as labs and golden retrievers go.
Or can curl up on the sofa next to the child.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. And when I moved here, I adopted a lab golden retriever from the rescue place.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Just a sweet dog, but she was older. I don't know if she had any service or not, been in any. But I also wondered, do you ever have dogs for children with allergies, like labradoodles?
Oh, unfortunately, right now, no.
Okay.
So yeah, our breeding program, we were founded in 1975, and our breeding program is that long, and it does cost the organization approximately $50,000 to provide a dog to somebody. So pretty much we found over the year, because at first they tried rescue dogs, they tried corgis, German shepherds, and over the years, and even with labs and golden retrievers, our graduation rate is still at between 50 and 55%. We get the biggest bang for our buck with labs and golden retrievers. You're not the first person to ask about that. I don't know if it's under any serious consideration, but unfortunately right now it's just labs and golden retrievers.
My daughter and granddaughter live in the East Coast, so they had started looking a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
They do raise labradoodles and
excellent.
And golden doodles, I think, somewhere else. But
excellent.
Let's see. My other question was just in general, do you handle or anything for children with pandas? PANDAS?
I'm not familiar.
Okay. It's pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with streptococcus. They can catch it early on in school when it's a strep.
It depends on, so if it's, so our dogs, help with physical tasks. They wouldn't be able to detect a condition like that if it was through scent detection or something.
Yeah, no, it's sort of uncontrolled, a tendency to burst into a tantrum, which is why the dog is very helpful, because she loves the dog and her too. And
so
like
sorry, I'm sorry,
the lap command. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, I started answering your question before you're done. I apologize. So like I was saying, the application process isn't matching particular disabilities with our dogs. It's matching what they need help with. So if this child can use the same kind of help that a child with autism, I mean, I don't decide these things. Like I said, I'm just a fundraiser here. But we don't ask you necessarily what's your disability. The question is really, what do you need help with? What physical tasks do you need help with?
Right. Yeah, there's a little of that autism in there too. Do you know an organization of breeders and trainers on the East Coast that does what you do? Or
so our breeding program is based in our at our headquarters in Santa Rosa. And then we have 4 vets on staff that work with the breeding program, and 2 of them are focused just on the breeding program, and we don't have them in the other regions. And obviously there's a need to physically be in the same place as
Right.
the dogs. But our trainers are in all 6 campuses across the country.
I'm just wondering if you know of any other organizations that do training that maybe have the Labradoodles or are in the East Coast so they could access them better.
I would look at there's a website for Assistance Dogs International. Canine Companions is a founding member of Assistance Dogs International. Okay. And you can look up on their site what type of dog you're interested in and where you're located. And it'll bring up a list of service dog organizations that, we like to think that Assistance Dogs International has the highest standards for service dogs rather than some other ones. So I would definitely look there.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Mary, I'm glad you mentioned international because I was just in Europe and they told us there's no ADA there, which I definitely found to be true. I mean, they don't have ramps or anything that we take for granted here. So I'm wondering, how does it work with the dogs if you travel?
Yeah,
are they allowed on the planes? Do the hotels need to take them? I mean, all the rules that apply here apparently don't apply anywhere else.
Yeah, the U.S. ADA law requires that someone with a disability be able to go pretty much everywhere with their service dog, including planes. And when our clients want to travel to other countries, it really depends on each individual country. And we don't have control over that, unfortunately, but we just give guidance. And I know our clients do take their dogs internationally. They avoid some places and not others. But yeah, it really is country by country.
So who do they contact to find out?
We'll start with the airlines and the hotels. So now that I think about it, I'm wondering if that's something that Assistance Dogs International addresses on their website.
Yes. So you just mentioned guide dog. So can you contrast guide dog versus service dog?
Yes. So guide dogs help people who are blind, similar to the way our hearing dogs help people who are deaf. So we actually work pretty closely with guide dogs, which is located in Marin County. They kind of do everything we don't do in the other way around. We actually trade puppies and breeders to kind of mix things up in our gene pool. So we work very closely with them. They're older than us. They're 80, maybe almost 90 years old, and Canine Companions is almost 50 years old. So yeah, we worked during the fires 4 years ago, and the fires in Sonoma. Air quality was so bad that we had to get our dogs off of campus in Santa Rosa, and guide dogs, which is a little bit south of us, took about 40 or 50 of our dogs.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're great partners. Pamela?
Okay, just one more question, please. You said the cost of raising a dog through Canine Companions is about $50,000. The company kennel it's a broad training area that in the East that my daughter contacted first. They sell their dogs after they're trained for about $11,000 to $15,000. And I'm wondering, and then further, I guess it needs more training. It's more expensive. Is there a way to apply to the government for some relief on that cost?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that myself since we provide them for free. That's a good question. I'm sorry to keep going back to ADI, but I'm wondering if ADI has some information on that.
Okay. And it is Assistance Dog International spelled out.
Okay. Yes. these are just the basic ways you can help. We are it kind of goes up and down every year. Some years you apply to be a volunteer puppy raiser. You might wait a year, but right now we are actively in need of puppy raisers. So if you applied to be a puppy raiser, you would get a puppy probably very soon after. And the question we always get is, how do you give up the puppy after a year and a half? And the answer is, it's not always easy. It's easier for some people than others, but when you see where the puppy goes, and when you see the 2 videos that I tried to play, that'll answer part of the question. Our puppy raisers really do aim to have their dogs graduate. They're not happy when they don't graduate, even though if they don't go to another program, they get first dibs on adopting the dog. So there's a link to puppy raising. We're also, if you or anybody you know lives roughly within 100 miles of Santa Rosa, we're actively looking for volunteer breeder caretakers also for both the females and the daddy dogs. And you can also become an advocate. So we talked about the advocacy program. If you'd like to join that would be fantastic. And then there's also a link here to just general volunteer opportunities where you can sign up. And also my shameless plug for donating, where you can always use donations.
Right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Judy has my contact information if you have any other questions, or if you want to get involved with the mission, feel free to contact me.
Who do we contact up there to find out where we stand on the waiting list?
That would be our the graduate department, and you can send me an email, and I'll try to. My email is mcap as in Peter, lice@canine.org.
Okay, well, thank you. Everybody give her a hand, and well, hopefully see you another time. This was great. Bye.
Thanks, you guys. You were excellent. Thanks for all your great questions.
Thank you very much, Mary.
You're welcome.